Hey everyone. Today I want to talk to you about your session 4 slides that you see in your Canvas assignment for this week. I can build a product that makes my thinking visible through writing about my reading. Yesterday we wrote down our thoughts on Post-its and readers' notebooks to keep track of our initial ideas as we read. We do this to remember our thinking before our thinking changes and before the book changes. Today we're going to focus on various ways that we can record our thinking. So we can do this in our notebooks by writing a summary of what we've read. We might write down some ideas on sticky notes and we might have them posted throughout our book. We may remove them from our book and stick them in our physical notebooks, our hard copy notebooks. We might take some notes for a book club so that when we meet with our club, we have some ideas on things that we were thinking as we were reading that we could share with our group for our discussion. We might create a timeline of the events in the order that they happen to show the chronological order of the story and the sequence of events in a story so that we don't forget them. We might draw the setting. Usually as we begin reading a book, we are introduced to the setting and the characters. We might draw a picture of how we visualize that setting on a piece of paper to help us get that in our minds. We might write about character traits. We might draw a picture of what we think our character looks like and then identify their traits based on their actions in the story and how they change throughout a story. So what we want to do is we want to create what we call noteworthy notebooks. These notebooks, sometimes your entries will be online, like we've been submitting them the last couple of weeks to you. Sometimes, and they'll be stored in your reading folder in your drive. Sometimes they'll be on your hard copy in your composition notebook that you purchased. Either way, we want it to be noteworthy. So when we complete this unit, we'd like for you to have a reader's notebook that is worthy of a gallery log, a notebook that others will look at and say, wow, I can really see all the thinking you were doing. So let's look at some examples of what that might look like. These are examples of notebooks that students have done in the past. And these are some creative ways to demonstrate their thoughts. My Chromebook's a little bit slow. All right, so here we go. So for example, this little girl was reading Charlotte's Web by E.B. White. And you can notice that she's got her name at the top. She has the title of her book here. She has the author. And as she was reading, on page 3, she wrote on a sticky note, how could Mr. Arable kill the little pig? Why did he change his mind? On another sticky note, she wrote, do Fern's parents like Wilbur? And this was read on page 8. That's when she thought this. And why can't Fern keep Wilbur? This was on page 12. So notice that on the sticky notes, you want to write down what page that you had that thought. That way, if you need to go back to that page and revisit your thinking, you can. Now, this type of strategy is called writing long about one of your annotations. So she took out 3 of her annotations, and the first one, how could Mr. Arable kill the little pig and why did he change his mind? As she read a little farther, she wrote, it doesn't seem fair to kill a baby pig just because it's small. Fern's parents thought it was okay. Maybe they aren't very nice, but the dad does change his mind. So she wrote long about her thinking. Here she drew a little picture of Fern and Mr. Arable, and she wrote down something about Fern. She said that Fern's 8 years old. She was determined to save the pig, and she stands up to her dad. She gets really upset. She's very strong-willed. Fern takes good care of the pig in this picture. Page 6, she looks like a mother holding a baby. So that means Fern is caring and gentle. And on page 15, all the animals trust her. So based on these things that's happening on these different pages, she was able to determine a lot about Fern's character traits based on her actions. Here on this sticky note it says, do Fern's parents like Wilbur? She says, Miss Arable helps by feeding Wilbur when Fern is at school, but she also complains about him and he gets moved from the kitchen to the woodshed and then to outside. Then she says Mr. Arable was going to kill him, but now he's made Wilbur a yard and a wooden box with straw to keep him warm. So here she describes how these characters felt about Wilbur to begin with, and then she talks a little bit about how they changed. So she can see how the parents' opinion of Wilbur changed as they got to know him throughout the story. Why can't Fern keep Wilbur is what she was wondering on page 12. The dad doesn't seem to care that Fern loves Wilbur. He just says that she has to sell him because he's older and he's eating more, and Fern seems less strong-willed because she agrees to sell him. He only cost $6. So that was just some of her thinking there. Here on this page, she writes about the setting. She clips a picture and she says it's the country. It takes place in the country on a farm. There's a hog house. The pa wears overalls. There's grass, an apple tree, barns, animals. So she goes and she just finds a picture of this to depict what she's seeing in her mind about the setting. So here she goes on through more of the characters and their homes and their feelings. So I can see that Jessica understands what she's reading in Charlotte's Web just based on her entries that she's written in her notebook. I can follow her thoughts, and I can even know what the story is about based on her thoughts. Here's another one that she wrote about the best school year ever by Barbara Robinson. She introduces her characters. Here she does something that she just lists the characters and she lists what she knows about them so far. And this is a work in progress. So as you meet the characters, you add to your chart. You can go back through your notebook to pages from the beginning of where you started taking notes on that particular book, and you can add to them as you meet new characters. And then you can add to their traits as they change. Here she's written down some things that she's questioning as she reads. A lot of times if you write down things that you're questioning as you read, you're annotating. As you read, those questions may be answered. So you might want to go back through and answer those questions so you can just track your reading. Here, Alyssa is reading a diary of a wimpy kid. And she decides that she wants to write a letter to one of the characters. So she says, "Dear Greg, I'm noticing that you are a bit insecure. Please don't take this the wrong way, but you seem to be extremely bossy. You seem to be extremely bossy, mean, and a bit of a bully to Riley. It seems that you are so nervous to be bullied yourself. And note when Roderick is mean to you. Why do you then act this way to Riley?" So she questions her character. She talks to her character about the things that he's doing in the book. She calls him out on a few things. But as she's writing this letter, you can track her thought process as she meets the characters and as things happen in the story. Grace writes about there's a boy in the girls' bathroom. So as she was reading, she wrote something down on a Post-it. And then she decided that she would write long about the Post-it. I'm noticing that Bradley is a boy of contradictions. He acts very differently at school versus the way he acts at home. Even at home, he acts differently in front of different family members and in different places within his home, like the kitchen versus his room. So she starts here describing her character and how he's acting in different places. And then she makes things that she likes about him and things that she doesn't like about him. And she goes through and she uses textual evidence. She copies information straight from the book. Like, "That's right. Nobody likes sitting next to me." He smiled, a strange smile. This was said on page 4. So, he's evil here and thinking that he's glad nobody wants to sit by him. And then she writes down things on this side. He was talking to his talking about his connection of little animals. And they were all friends and they all liked it, Bradley. So this makes her think that maybe he's not so bad after all if he's nice to little animals and little animals like him. So you can see this is just another way to write down your thoughts about what you're reading. Here there's a picture of Greg, and these are all the things that are good and bad character traits about Greg. And these are things that Greg is feeling, and she's pulled textual evidence, and she's written down the page numbers that she found as textual evidence that demonstrates that he was worried or he was bitter or he was embarrassed. Here, this is a story by Eleanor about the 100 dresses. This is her strategies that she wrote about this book. And she's talking about the setting, room 13, and what kind of place it is. So basically what your notebook is going to be is just a collection of your thoughts and your creativity. So you can draw pictures of your characters, of your setting. You can use graphic organizers to jot down your thoughts about your characters' actions and things they said. So conclusions that you can draw about those characters. In Esperanza Rising, it's talking about how she demonstrates perseverance. And then here's notes in different places throughout the story that demonstrates perseverance. One idea I'm getting is Greg is a bully. Okay, so if you have that idea, tell me why. I think this will cause, and then you go through and you give me all kind of reasons why you think Greg's a bully, why your character's a bully, or whatever statement that you made about your character. Give textual evidence to support your thinking. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to go through all of these examples, and I want you to look at them, pick out the ones that you like the best, read over them, become familiar with them, look for timelines, look for graphic organizers, ways that you can, here's like a little timeline here that's just showing you the sequence of events. It could be cause and effect, showing how this happened, therefore it caused this to happen. Here you can just track, I noticed that Maddie did these things, so this makes me think, what about Maddie? I'll let you go through all of these and read over them, and there are some more examples here in the example notes to get some ideas on how you want to create your notebook and how you want to demonstrate what you're thinking about. So basically your notebook is a conversation between me and you about your book. I will give you prompts to write about, and then you will go to your notebook and you will demonstrate your thinking as you read your book, addressing the prompt that I've given you to think on. So let's do this just for a second. Consider your point from yesterday. Our narrator was trying so hard to be perfect and failing to make it be perfect. She felt animosity, which means hatred. She says her life was an atrocity, which means horror. I think the message that the author wants us to see is that no one is perfect and we have to learn to accept ourselves so that we can be happy. This change in her made all the difference in the quality of her life. So let's look at some changes that you've been through. So here we're trying to connect with our character. Some of the ways that we told you to annotate was to question your text that you're reading, try to visualize the setting and your characters and what's going on in your story. Try to predict what they might do next based on their actions and the things that they say and do. And then try to connect with them in some way. So let's see if you can connect with the character who was in Imperfect Me in the poem that we read yesterday. Let's look at some changes you've been through. Create a chart in your reader's notebook to consider how you can connect this character. This will be your notebook strategy that you use today. So we have given you a notebook page, and on the notebook, on your composition notebook page, it just reminds you of the things that I just told you in this slide, and it gives you a place for you to show your work. And in these 4 boxes, you're going to reflect on your life and how your life has changed. In what ways has your life changed since first grade? In what ways has your life changed since last year? How might your life change during the current school year? So here you're making a prediction. And what types of changes might occur when you become a teenager? So this just is going to have you think on the kind of changes that the character in Imperfect Me experienced. Do you think you will experience some of those things? Do you think you'll try to be perfect? Do you think you'll realize that you're not perfect? And reflect on that. So this will be your notebook entry for today. Let me show you real quick using my screen what that page is going to look like. And remember that you have copied this page in your drive because you annotated yesterday. Our standard is I can analyze the way I'm thinking while I'm reading. And here's where you're going to think on the poem. And here is where you will go in and you will type your answers. In what ways has my life changed since first grade? Since first grade, there's where you will start typing. Have fun demonstrating your thoughts and reflecting on this poem and connecting with the character in The Imperfect Me.